Hi, everybody. Welcome to Harbor Place. I'm Matt Belfiore. I'm the Director of Operations for HC Media. Hi. Very good. Thank you very much. I figured I'd start it off with a little bit of levity. Welcome to HC Media Studio 101 at Harbor Place. We are very happy to be one of the establishing tenants here at this historic site. The room that you're in may look like a simple setup, but there's a lot of technology going on here. We designed this to work in three distinct ways. First and foremost, it's a TV studio with 6 state-of-the-art cameras and all the equipment needed to record any and all proceedings here. Second, it's designed to be a training facility. We work in conjunction with Northern Essex Community College to teach classes in video production, and we teach and train the Haverhill residents in the ways of video production also. Thirdly, this place is a venue for performances and events of all kinds, just like the one you're attending tonight. So far, the response from the city has been fantastic. We've already hosted numerous debates, meetings, classes, and performances in the 2 months since opening. Add to that all events here can be live streamed. They can go live over our channel. They can be recorded. It makes it a great all-purpose venue for any and all things going on here in the Haverhill community. And the room is filling up fast, so anybody out there with an organization who wants to get in here, see us quickly, because it's going quick. Anyway, I just want to introduce the president of the League of Women Voters, Joel Gagnon. Come on up here, and let's get the ball going.
Thank you. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's 2017 Candidates Debate hosted by the League of Women Voters of Greater Haverhill. I'm Joel Gagnon, president of the Greater Haverhill League. The League is a nonpartisan political organization for women and men, which encourages informed and active participation in government. This debate for the 2 finalists of the November 7th special election to fill the 3rd Essex State Representative seat is part of our ongoing voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions regarding the upcoming election. We hope that over the course of this program, you will learn more about the candidates and what they hope to do for Haverhill. At this time, I would like to acknowledge Haverhill Community Television and WHAV 97.9 FM radio for broadcasting this event live from the new HCTV studio located at Harbor Place in downtown Haverhill. I will now turn things over to tonight's moderator, Peggy Cruz, from the League of Women Voters of Andover, North Andover, who will explain the rules and format of tonight's debate. Peggy?
So I actually don't need this. Okay, so I'm going to start with some instructions for the candidates. The timekeepers are sitting right here. I will tell you before each section how much time you have to answer each question. When there are 30 seconds left on your time, the timekeeper will hold up a 30-second card. Can you hold it up to show them, please? When there are 15 seconds left on your time, the timekeeper will hold up a 15-second card, and at that point, start wrapping up your comments. When your time is up, the timekeeper will hold up a stop card. If you continue speaking after the stop card is held up, I will say thank you and move on to the next question or the next speaker. Personal references to the other candidates are out of order. This forum is being broadcast live, as you heard, and it will be rebroadcast several times before Election Day. So instructions to the audience: please turn off your cell phones and beeping watches now. We request that you treat both candidates fairly. Please remain quiet throughout the forum. No clapping, cheering, calling out, with the exception that after the end of the session, you may clap for both candidates if you wish. The Greater Haverhill League of Women Voters has solicited questions through its website and collected questions from the audience just prior to the start of this forum. From the submitted questions, I will select questions that cover a variety of topics, apply to the issues and qualifications for the office of state representative, and apply equally to each candidate for that office. We will cover as many questions as possible, but due to time constraints, this is going to be a 1-hour forum. We may not get to every question that came in. Okay, with that, we will start. The 2 candidates running for this seat are Shaun Toohey
Yes.
and Andy Vargas. The candidates will give opening statements in the order in which they will appear on the ballot, and then they will alternate being the first to answer the following questions. A coin toss was going to be done for the order of closing statements. I guess I didn't hear the results of the time coin toss.
Andy won the toss, but he.
I'll be going second.
He's
He'll
going
be
to go
going
second.
first. Yep.
Ah, okay. Thank you. Glad to catch up with that. So I'll just circle that. So we're going to start with the opening statements now. The question was sent to you in advance, and the question is, please tell us why you are seeking the position and about your prior experience working with civic, community, and or other government organizations.
Thank you. I want to thank you for being here this evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this debate this evening. Again, my name is Shaun Toohey, and I'm running for state representative because I want to have a positive impact on the community I care deeply about. Haverhill and I share the same values, hard work, integrity, and compassion. As a father of two, both of my children attend Haverhill Public Schools. I understand the challenges that hardworking families face every single day. That is why I will fight to keep our city and our community very safe. I will oppose any effort for a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state.
Excuse
I will
me,
continue to
excuse
fight.
me. I have to ask that you be quiet or you will need to leave the forum. We are not, you need to be quiet. And please give him a few extra seconds because there was an outburst here.
Thank you. Again, those are a few of my issues. I'd also like to continue to fight for education. Being a member of the school committee for 14 years, I want to make sure Beacon Hill is fiscally responsible and accountable to you. Haverhill deserves a strong advocate who will be able to deliver for our city what our city needs. Because I have existing relationships with the existing governor, Governor Baker, the most popular governor in the United States, along with Lieutenant Governor Polito, I feel those relationships are beneficial, along with some of the legislative delegation, will allow me to hit the ground running from day one. Being an effective representative means being able to bring people together in a bipartisan fashion and get the job done. As a small business owner with local government experience, I'm expected to get the job done every single day. That's what I'll do as your next state rep. I look forward to discussing the issues tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vargas?
Thank you very much. My name is Andy Vargas. I'm proud to be your Haverhill City Councilor. I'm a son of Haverhill. I grew up on Arlington Street with a loving family that instilled in me the values of hard work, integrity, and compassion for our fellow neighbors, and human decency, and respect for all, no matter where they've come from, who they love, or their background. I mentioned I'm a son of Haverhill. I'm a product of Haverhill Public Schools and Boston University. That education has propelled me to experiences in public service that have prepared me for this position. My passion for public service started when I was 16 years old as a part of an organization called Teens Leading the Way, where we helped draft statewide legislation to make civic education a graduation requirement. That experience told me that we could do some neat things with public service when we put toxic politics aside and came together to talk about common sense reform. And because of that experience, I went on to serve on Beacon Hill doing constituent services in both the House and the Senate. I go on to serve as a White House intern for President Obama, and also in the U.S. Embassy in Madrid, where I help small and medium-sized businesses in the U.S. export their products out to Spain, growing our country's GDP. I'm here tonight to talk about Haverhill issues. I'm the only candidate in this room that has been endorsed by local officials, by the majority of the Haverhill City Council, by school committee members, and the new Ways and Means chairman in the legislature. I'm here to fight for you and talk about the issues that matter to you, not about toxic politics and petty politics, because Haverhill is ready for a new vision, a new chapter that defines who we are as a city. And I'm in this race because I believe that our brightest days are still ahead, and we can get there without being toxic and disappointing to each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now move on to the question and answer part of the evening. You will have 1 minute to answer each question. You are not required to use the full minute. You will then have an opportunity, if you would like, to make an optional 30-second rebuttal. 30-minute. So we're going to touch on as many issues as possible, so please try to stay on the subject of the specific question. So the first question goes to Mr. Vargas, and it is, jobs and the economy are very important issues in Haverhill. How do you plan to bring more jobs, and what is your experience in creating jobs?
Thank you very much, and I think this is one of the focal points of this election. At my day job at Entrepreneurship for All, what we focus on is growing economies from the bottom up. And the way we do that is by supporting our small businesses and early stage entrepreneurs. And so what we do at E4All is we take folks who have an idea to start a business or that have already started a business and are ready to scale it at the local level. And we help them do that. We give them access to capital, mentors, and resources to scale. And so the way we grow an economy is by supporting our small businesses, ensuring that our middle class has an honest day's wage for an honest day's work, and by ensuring that corporations stop going through corporate tax loopholes that are affecting our middle class and small businesses. So those are ways that I'll address economic development in the city of Haverhill, in addition to the fact that there are 300,000 advanced manufacturing job openings right now. We need to make sure that we have the top-notch education for Haverhill residents to fill those jobs today.
Thank you. Mr. Toohey.
Well, thank you. As a small business owner and being in business for well over 20 plus years, I understand and I hear many challenges throughout not only Haverhill but throughout the Commonwealth, Massachusetts. Regulation, as far as I'm concerned, has been a detriment to growing the economy. If you're spending a lot of time on legal issues and compliance, not focusing on R&D and development, that's always going to be a problem. So I hear that day in and day out, and throughout, I've heard that for the last probably 20 plus years. So I think my background and experience brings unique perspective. Well over 20 years, I know Andy's E4All is his experience, although that comment is eloquent as it was. He's been at this for about maybe a year or so. So I think the experience is quite different, and there's a large
Thank you,
contrast
Mr. Toohey.
between the two of us.
We'll move on to rebuttal if you would like it, Mr. Vargas.
Great, yeah. So I can talk about what I do have experience in. In the past 2 years, we've created jobs at E4All. What I don't have experience in is wasting $10 million in taxpayer fundings in solar projects that would have saved the city money and been a positive boost for our environment. Those are things I don't have experience in. I have experience on the city council and public service and creating jobs at Entrepreneurship for All. Thank you.
Do I have a chance to
Thank you.
rebut?
You can get, yes,
Well, it's easy to say that as an individual, less than 2 years of experience in your current position. And I can't wait to, I'm sure we'll get the question tonight relative to the solar project, and I'll never sell the city out and the taxpayers out for projects that involves very, very bad organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the second question, and Mr. Toohey, you will be first for it. Both of you have served in municipal government, one on the school committee and one on the city council. What would you say is your single most significant achievement during your time in office?
That's a tough one. There have been many. We deal with a lot of issues on the school committee, and I want to commend my colleagues for working hard. Over the last 14 years, I've increased technology. Myself and Joe Bevilacqua at the time spearheaded new technologies throughout the district, leasing computers, and that's insignificant. We talk a lot about professional development, and the K through 5 series way back when, Trailblazers was failing, and we heard it from a lot of educators throughout the system that wasn't working, and I feel confident I was instrumental in changing that. So those are a couple things, along with hiring, in my opinion, one of the best superintendents we've had in a long time.
Okay. Mr. Vargas.
Thank you very much. It's no surprise that it's a tough question for my opponent to answer. 90% of school districts in Massachusetts invest more in education. We put 30 grand into professional development for the entire district. You tell me if that's enough for our schools. And on top of that, I'm here to talk about also my successes and what we've done on the city council. We've advocated for a platform called ClearGov, which tells taxpayers exactly where their tax dollars are going. We have found resources and created opportunities when none were there by going out to Brandeis University and getting MBA students to come in and do a strategic plan for the city of Haverhill that cost us nothing. And we've partnered with the institution right above us, UMass Lowell, to help bring startups to the city of Haverhill. On top of that, I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is bringing people to City Hall, making City Hall more accessible, activating our neighborhoods, going to neighborhood meetings and bringing them to City Hall, because the best way that we revitalize the city is when all boats rise. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebuttal, Mr. Toohey?
Yeah, it's just really a comment. I forget when Andy graduated high school. I've been on the school committee for relatively 14 years, and I would probably say I've been on the school committee when you were in the Haverhill Public School System for probably 60 to 70% of that time. Correct. I think you turned out pretty well, Andy, don't you think?
I appreciate the compliment.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. We are now, Was there another?
I'm all set. That's
You're all
fine.
set, okay. Question 3.
I gave him a compliment, he's good.
Okay. Question 3. Do you favor the expansion of solar and wind energy by lifting restrictions on renewable energy and ending pipeline construction? And the first question is Mr. Vargas.
Thank you.
1 minute.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think it's evident in my actions here in the City Council where we fought to expand solar and even got the City Council to deliver a letter to the school committee to reverse their decision on solar panels. And so I absolutely will be an advocate for solar, not only because it's good for the environment, let's be clear about this, but this is also the way of the 21st century economy. If we don't take advantage of this industry, other countries will. And so this is an opportunity, a moment that we have to seize. It's not only right for the environment, but it's fiscally responsible, and it's one of the top things we can do for our economy. You're going to hear from my opponent that there's a company here in Haverhill. He's going to slander a company here in Haverhill that was going to create a project on Haverhill High that would have saved us $10 million, and I look forward to rebutting that. Thank you.
Mr. Toohey.
Well, I don't think I'm going to slander anyone. I think I'm just going to state the facts and let the chips fall where they may. And for the record, I want to be clear on something, although my opponent may disagree and try to tell you different. I've been listening to this now for several months. I am a big fan of solar and alternative energy. I've always said I'm in favor of reducing the carbon footprint throughout the Commonwealth and throughout the world, quite frankly. So the idea that Shaun Toohey is not in favor of alternative energy is what it sounds like, a complete myth. I look forward to answering and debating again further on what Andy has to say about the solar project. And again, I've asked the mayor time and time again to bring me back another project that makes sense for me with a company that has the experience, and I'll vote for it tomorrow. It's that simple. So I look forward to further discussion on the issue.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you
30
very much.
seconds.
And the $10 million project that would have saved taxpayers $10 million was supported by the mayor, by the entire city council, and half of the school committee. So let's be clear about who's behind on what side. The reality is that Haverhill voters know that this project failed because of petty politics. There's backdoor conversations happening between 2 school committee members, and that was the real reason why this cost taxpayers $10 million in savings. That's money that could have gone to professional development, to public safety, and education. And so while it's nice to say that our carbon footprint is a priority, I've been endorsed by the Massachusetts Sierra Club, ELM, and it's on my website, unlike yours. Thank you.
Little confusion in the time card here.
Oh, sorry.
Rebuttal?
Yeah, it's what you just heard is exactly what it is. It's Andy's opinion, and Andy's opinion doesn't mean it's factual. So it's not about petty politics. It's about doing business with the right companies here. I will always put the taxpayers first before I benefit and make sure that your friends that you rent from make a substantial commission of $250,000, number one. And number two, the organizations that are in place actually don't have a consent or for securities fraud.
Thank you. Okay, the next question starts with Mr. Toohey. The question starts with slumping. The question is, slumping tax revenues has hobbled the state's ability to balance the budget. Would you be in favor of more tax revenue to fill this gap, or do you favor reducing state services, or something else?
I'm not in favor. I think we're taxing. I'm a tax cut fiscal individual. I feel that we need to look at additional revenues. And I think as we look down the road relative to education, local aid, the casino revenue is going to be a major and have a major impact on the Commonwealth. Governor Baker's done a terrific job delivering more local aid, making sure that Chapter 70 the formula and funding is done at the appropriate level. So before I start cutting any services, and I do believe in a zero-based budgeting platform, we could talk about that a little bit more going line by line, which I do now. In my opinion, I don't support any increase in taxes at this particular juncture. You need to have a real good reason in order for me to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Vargas.
Thank you very much. And I think that, as I've done on the City Council, we need to go line item by line item in the state budget and find ways that we can reallocate funds in ways that will provide a greater return on investment for the state and cut when necessary. But let's be honest, there are a lot of programs that are underfunded right now, including education, transportation, and infrastructure across the state of Massachusetts. And so while the casino revenue is nice, I'm not going to bank our economic future on casino revenue. I think we need to look at ways to close corporate welfare. There are big corporations in Massachusetts that pay a very low wage that then makes the government have to pay welfare to those employees. And I think that if we do that, then we can do things like lower the sales tax for small businesses while we generate revenue from large corporations and individuals that have the money to go through these loopholes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just may make a
Sure.
comment. I just want to comment on, as far as infrastructure, Chapter 90 money, Governor Baker, the Baker administration has done a terrific job, and actually Chapter 90 reimbursement is up in the budget.
Another comment?
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to working with the House, which also agrees in increasing Chapter 90 funding. And the gentleman who decides where that funding goes and how the budget operates is the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, and I'm looking forward to working with him because he has endorsed me. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Vargas, you're first for this question. As state representative, what would you do for senior citizens? And in particular, can you comment on property tax relief?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, healthcare is one of the issues that I've heard from seniors when I've spoken to them. We need to make sure that we expand access and preserve the affordability and integrity of Medicare and Medicaid. So I will fight for healthcare, that's number one, to make sure that they still get those benefits. When it comes to property taxes, I think it's worth taking a look at the fact that if you own more than 25 units, you are taxed as a residential property owner still. But if you own 25 units, you're operating a business, so let's be very clear about that. You're not a single family home. You should be taxed instead as a commercial entity, as a business, so that we can lessen the burden on seniors that are living on fixed incomes. And so that's what I'll do, legislation that I'll work on Beacon Hill, and I'll also fight to expand affordable housing for our seniors and most vulnerable. Thank you.
The question, if you don't mind repeating, the question is about seniors, correct?
What would you do for senior citizens, and can you comment on property tax relief? Yes.
Right. It's a great question. I just want to be clear, like veterans, I will always make sure that I take care and never forget the people that took care of us. There's no question about that. As far as I would look towards, people may not know this, but there's about 844,000 caregivers that take care of seniors, that allow them to stay in their home throughout the Commonwealth. And I would like to see those individuals get a tax break or a tax credit rather, to make sure that they can provide the services they need in order to make sure that we take care of the seniors. In addition, you hear a lot about identity fraud that's out there. I support the idea that to waive the fees, waive the credit report if there's an identity theft that takes place. We all know how important identity theft is. It runs rampant throughout the country. So I'd be in favor of lessening the burden for the seniors. Like I said, I'll always take care of the people that took care of me.
Thank you. Mr. Vargas, a follow-up?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Mr. Toohey, a follow-up?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Next question goes to Mr. Toohey first. As the next state representative of Haverhill, can you list and explain your goals for Haverhill, both short and long term?
By the way, I like the way that sounded when you said state rep, Shaun Toohey, but my vision really is very simple, is to continue to build on what Brian's done for the last 27 years. There's no secret, Andy has relationships, I have relationships with the governor of Massachusetts, and he's going to tout about the Ways and Means. But Governor Baker has assured me that he's going to work hand in hand with me, side by side, to make sure that we deliver the services that are needed, local aid. Most importantly, Chapter 70, like I talked about, for education is very, very important. Both of my kids attend Haverhill Public Schools, and I want to make sure that, most importantly, that we talk about special education. I want to jump on House Bill 282 and 283 with Jimmy Kelcourse and Brad Hill to make sure that we change that formula to make sure that circuit breaker reimbursement for our most needed population is taken care of.
Thank you. Mr. Vargas?
Thank you. And to address the question, and I think my mic has been cut, but that's okay. There we go.
Okay.
To address the question, short-term and long-term goals. Short-term, I think the most immediate crisis that we're facing is the opioid crisis. We, as a Commonwealth, have come together, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or Independent, to launch a campaign that says that addiction is a disease, right? That we can no longer incarcerate our way out of this. And so that would be one of the most immediate short-term goals I'd look to address in heading to Beacon Hill. And I would look to find funding from the legislature, working together with the governor and the chair of the Ways and Means Committee. More long-term, and frankly, even short-term, is education. I'll come back to the fact that our dropout rates are some of the highest in Massachusetts, that our per pupil funding for education is some of the lowest in Massachusetts, that we are not investing in our education system. So how do you expect home values to go up and develop an economy when you don't have an education system that is of quality? So those would be two short-term and long-term issues that I look to address on my way to Beacon Hill.
Thank you. Follow-up, Mr.
Oh,
Toohey?
absolutely. I'm glad that Andy brought the opioid crisis because I certainly am going to push the initiative and I support mandatory minimums. The opioid crisis is what it is. It's a crisis. If you sell heroin, fentanyl, or drugs and it causes a fatality, you should go to prison, case closed. As far as the dropout rate, Mr. Vargas, Andy is misinformed. Our dropout rate is actually under 3%. The actual, we're updated in our last school committee meeting. The actual information that Andy's referring to was actually entered into the system incorrectly. So the dropout rate, just so we're all clear on, is 2.96%.
Well,
Thank
can
you.
I have a rebuttal?
No, we're out of rebuttals, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That was our,
I didn't know we had a limited amount of rebuttals. All right, that's fine.
we're moving on to other
That's fine, no
topics,
worries.
but Actually, there is, I was trying to find it, there was oh well, we'll move on to the next.
Okay.
Probably will come back at some
No
point.
worries.
What are your plans of action to further help the homelessness in the city? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Vargas first.
Thank you. So homelessness is obviously a tremendous issue here in the city of Haverhill. We have an agency that does great work, and it's Emmaus. Emmaus has proven that they have a model to help reintegrate folks into society. And so I think, while it's important for us to expand affordable housing and support Emmaus's programs, we also need to make sure that we're holding other communities across the Commonwealth accountable when it comes to how much affordable housing they have. Because if you look across the state of Massachusetts, we're doing our job in terms of affordable housing. We're above the 10% that is recommended. But other cities like Boxford and Andover aren't pulling their fair share. And so if we want to revitalize an economy and provide equitable access to housing and education across the Commonwealth, we need to make sure that other cities are also doing their fair share.
Thank you. Mr. Toohey?
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually going to agree with Andy on most of what he said. We need to do, for me, it's bottom line, is doing everything we can to combat homelessness. It's a serious issue, and we need to be more compassionate and understand that these needs need to be met, and we need to make sure that as we go through the budget process up on Beacon Hill is to make sure we prioritize and make sure we address some of these issues from a fiscal standpoint, make sure we try to end homelessness not only in Haverhill but also throughout the Commonwealth.
Okay, follow up, Mr. Vargas? Mr. Toohey?
No.
Follow up to yourself, I guess. Okay, next question. So here, there were questions, so you can go in more depth on a couple of things you were talking about earlier. So here's a question: how do you plan to approach the drug addiction challenge facing Haverhill? So we have Mr. Toohey, you would be first for that.
Well, like I said, to me, it's my mic on? It's all about priorities. The drug addiction is, like I said, it's a critical issue here in Haverhill and in Massachusetts. And I just want to tell you a really quick story, if I may. And let me give you the answer. It's the same one as before. It's setting your priorities, making sure that there's enough education, counseling, and resources to combat the issue. As I campaigned throughout Haverhill, I was down on Golden Hill, when I met a gentleman. He just lost his daughter a little while ago, and she hung herself just underneath the porch I was sitting at. And he was in tears within a matter of 2 to 3 minutes when I met the gentleman. My heart was broken, it still is, and it's those kinds of stories that I'll never forget, and I'll take to Beacon Hill to make sure that I provide and do everything I can to combat this major crisis. It is an addiction, and it is a disease, but we want to make sure the deterrent, like I said a few minutes ago, is to make sure we keep dangerous criminals and drug dealers off the street. Thank you.
Mr. Vargas?
Absolutely, and I agree with that last statement that Mr. Toohey made, that we need to keep dangerous criminals and drug dealers off the street. What I am not in favor of is looping in dangerous criminals and drug dealers with folks who had opioid addictions and putting them together in the same jail and hoping that there's going to be rehabilitation. There's a great program here in the city of Haverhill working with NFI and the police department. And what happens is that when somebody has an overdose in the city of Haverhill, NFI and somebody from the police department show up to your door and say, how can I connect you to the resources that you need? That is what we need to do more. That's what we need to expand. And while it's nice for us to say that opioid addiction is a disease, we need to put our money where our mouths are. And there are programs that have worked across the state, but what we need to do is expand those beds and make sure that your odds at coming back from an opioid addiction aren't dependent on what type of health care you have or how much money you have in your pocket, because we are better than this here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Follow up, Mr. Toohey?
Yeah, I just want to say that the success rate, the stats are staggering. We do need to educate and make sure we have these programs available. But make no mistake about it, You need to get the drugs off the street. Get the drug dealers off the street. It's really that simple. If someone gets on heroin or fentanyl, at the end of the day, I think the number's anywhere between 20 to 25% actually recover. It's a staggering number.
Yeah, follow-up.
And just a quick follow-up, what this really is a supply and demand issue. From the supply end, we need to get all the resources that public safety needs, and from the demand end, we need to make sure that we're in our schools, making sure that our health teachers are talking about addiction, and making sure that we're getting in there early to be preventative about this so that we can address both ends of the spectrum.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, Mr. Vargas, you're first. The Massachusetts State Senate is currently taking up a crime bill. Many of the proposals in the bill are controversial. A majority of Massachusetts district attorneys have opposed the legislation in its current form, while advocacy groups like ACLU have come out in support. Do you support the legislation, or are there parts or the entire bill that you oppose? The Massachusetts House of Representatives is expected to draft and introduce its own version of a crime bill.
You
So,
just
Mr. Vargas.
took one of my talking points, and I'm kidding. The House is about to release their form of the bill on Monday, and I look forward to working with my House colleagues on that. There are certainly things in the Senate bill that I don't agree with and do disagree with. But those are all things that I look forward to working with both the Senate and the House and the governor together. Governor Baker, one of the things that I'm a fan of is that he said that our criminal justice system needs to be addressed. And so it's an inefficient system that's costing us too much money, and the recidivism rates are way too high. Because Essex County Sheriff Kevin Coppinger has endorsed me, we've also been working together to find ways to address the recidivism rates here in Haverhill and across the Commonwealth. The recidivism rates in Haverhill are actually higher than those in the city of Lynn for young people. And so that's a fact that we need to take home with us, and we need to take to Beacon Hill and address when we look at the criminal justice system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I've been endorsed by former Sheriff Frank Cousins. We're doing name drops this evening, quite a bit. And at the end of the day, what Andy has said is very important. We needed to make sure that we work with the House and Senate to do everything we can to make sure that we curb the recidivism issue. There's no question about that. I don't think we're going to disagree on that.
Follow-up?
Nope. That's it. I just want to add there's one program that is going through the House that today actually in conference committee I think had a good result, and that is the SSYI program, which is the Safe and Successful Youth Initiative, which is a program that I've seen work in Lowell and in Lawrence, and I'm already in discussions with the House and several agencies that can help us get access to those funds to address our gang violence here in the city of Haverhill.
Thank you. Follow-up?
No, I think Andy just touched on something that people are really not, you may be aware of, just going back to the gang violence. The gang violence in Haverhill is gone up dramatically. That's another issue that needs to be addressed in a very short order.
Okay, the next question, Mr. Toohey, you will be first. Coalition building is one of the most important parts of being effective in state government. Please describe some of your previous experiences in coalition building.
Well, I've been doing that, working across the aisle, for being on the school committee, being in business development, along with, like I said, in local government for 14 years. You have a lot of different personalities, a lot of different ideologies that you have to work with over the years. You know, committee members come and go. So you need to make sure that you understand and you're compassionate enough, you're patient enough to make sure that you need to work together in order to accomplish everything. That's what I do. I'm an extremely compassionate, understanding, patient person, believe it or not. So you need to be that way. You need to have the personal characteristics in order to make sure that you can get things done. I've been doing it majority of my life, and I'll continue to do it on Beacon Hill.
Thank you. Mr. Vargas.
I absolutely agree that the characteristics of the individual are key to coalition building, and that's what I've done on the City Council, where the majority of the City Council has endorsed me, and the mayor as well. And yes, we are name dropping, but pay attention to the names. Nobody that has worked with Mr. Toohey at the local level has endorsed him. Everybody is outside of Haverhill. I'm proud of the fact that I don't agree all the time with my fellow city councilors or the mayor or the school committee members, but they have stood by me because they know that I'm honest, that I have integrity, and that I make decisions that are best for Haverhill. And so I will take that same attitude and that same track record to Beacon Hill, where I've already developed relationships with the chair of the Ways and Means Committee and several other legislators there that are waiting shovel ready to see what we can do to deliver for Haverhill. Thank you.
Follow-up, Mr. Toohey.
Well, the only rebuttal is I have I just never announced it, but School Committee Vice President Scott Wood has certainly been in my corner and is a personal friend of mine as well. And as far as, name dropping again, and the mayor indicated to me the reason why he's supporting you is because you are a Democrat, he's a Democrat. These are words that were spoken to me, and I guess the ideology wins, but at the end of the day, endorsements are great, are wonderful, I guess, but my best endorsement is each and every one of you here this evening. That's what I care about. I care about the endorsements from the citizens of Haverhill.
Mr. Vargas.
Absolutely, I agree, and I'm proud of all the endorsements of residents that we're portraying on our website. We're talking about residents that we've spoken to door to door. We've issued videos of veterans and seniors and folks from all walks of life that have endorsed us. And it's easy to say that doesn't the endorsements from officials don't matter, but it speaks volumes as to who we are as individuals and how we work together and whether or not we're team players. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next question, Mr. Vargas, you will be first. Haverhill has passed 3 of the 5 criteria to become a green community. As state rep from Haverhill, what would you do, if anything, to help Haverhill pass the last 2 criteria?
Absolutely, and I want to plug one of my fellow councilors here, Colin LePage, who has worked very hard on this issue. I think it's, again, it comes back to the fact that becoming a green community is not just about the green part of it and making sure that we're being responsible for our environment, but it's really good for our economy and the savings that we have as a city. And so on Beacon Hill, I'll make sure that I go after every single grant, every single source of funding that we can get that will further us along the 3 out of 5 steps that we've already taken, so we can reach those 2 other slots to continue to have savings for the city of Haverhill by not rejecting solar projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Toohey?
No, I just want to say that I commend Councilor Page as well on the initiative. Like I said, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I support the Green Initiative, I support the green community, I support solar projects 100%. Just bring me a company and a project that works and I'll vote for it. Thank you.
Okay. Follow-up, Mr. Vargas?
All set?
Follow-up, Mr. Toohey?
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay. Okay. This next question is for the candidates. It's not for the audience. So I would like the audience to remain quiet here. The question is, with Mr. Toohey first, would you like to see Haverhill become a sanctuary city?
I think you could tell by my opening remarks, it's absolutely a not, nor do I want a sanctuary city, nor do I want a sanctuary state. My opponent is going to talk about a lot of different things and get very eloquent and do videos and maybe could do a couple drones on the issue. But at the end of the day, I do not support a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state. You're talking about a gentleman who grew up in Lawrence, Massachusetts for over 20 years. I've seen firsthand how those bad policies cripple a community. I will never support a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state on my watch. Now, you're going to hear a different version from my opponent, but at the end of the day, he voted on the Democratic platform in June. He owns it. That's simple.
Okay. Mr. Vargas.
Thank you very much. And the honest truth is no, and unfortunately, my opponent has been misleading Haverhill residents for months on this issue because he's got nothing positive to talk about for himself. The reality is that sanctuary city is something that the city council and the mayor can enact. So if I wanted to do that, I would have tried to do it already as your city councilor. The other point is that what there is legislation on Beacon Hill that says that local law enforcement and state police are going to focus on going after all the drug dealers, all the criminals, people who pose a threat to public safety. And that bill is going through committee, and there are some certain things that I would like to change on it. But in concept, I agree with the executive director of the Mass Chiefs of Police that has endorsed that bill. I agree with the vast majority of law enforcement that says that they want to go after the criminals and not the hardworking families that Mr. Trump wants to deport. So I'm here to fight for all families in Haverhill, and I'm here to go after all criminals, whether they're documented or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Follow-up, Mr. Toohey?
Yeah, that was a nice, eloquent speech again, but at the end of the day, another compliment, that's two. But at the end of the day, it's what it is. I'm not the one who, we talk about fear-mongering and think about what you did with the fabricating an ice raid in the city of Haverhill. You're the one who voted on the platform again. The Safe Communities Act is another code for the Democrats for sanctuary city. Let's not kid ourselves. Everyone here in Haverhill knows, and I'm surprised that you're changing your view. Actually, I'm not. Your consultant probably told you it was a bad issue for you and you've changed your mind.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Vargas.
Thank you. There he goes again. Look, this is exactly what we're seeing in Washington. It's toxic politics, and we don't need this in Haverhill. The vast majority of Haverhill residents and law enforcement, whether you're a Democrat or Republican or independent, agree that our entire focus needs to be on going after criminals and gang members. And if we divert resources into fulfilling an agenda by some man in DC, then we are taking resources away from going after drug dealers and criminals. And so I agree with law enforcement with their opinion on this issue, and I look forward to continuing to support them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next question, Mr. Vargas, you're first. In your role in city government, each of you has taken controversial votes. I'm just going to summarize. There's a mention about solar panels at the high school and the mayor's budget. Can you please explain the controversial stands that you took, and would you still stand by your votes?
Me first?
Explain a controversial stand. Yes,
Absolutely.
Mr. Vargas.
So, look, it's never easy to vote on a budget in any city. In the past 16 years, the budget has never been voted down in the city of Haverhill until this past year. And 5 of us councilors had to come together and talk about the lack of resources in our Haverhill Police Department. And it was a very tough decision to make. And in a strong mayor form of government, it's tough to vote no and take pressure from different angles. But at the end of the day, 5 of us held firm, and we voted no because we knew that we needed to add at least 5 officers to the budget. And ultimately, we reached a compromise with the mayor to add those 5 police officers into the budget. And so, you know, I'm not about rubber stamping budgets. I'm about compromising, working together, and when necessary, voting no. And I stand by that vote and the 5 councilors that stood with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can
Mr.
you
Toohey.
repeat the question for me,
The
please?
question, in your role in city government, each of you is taking controversial votes. There's a mention of solar panels at the high school, the mayor's budget, I'm just summarizing. Please explain a controversial stand that you took, and do you still stand by that vote?
Any controversial vote? You're talking about the solar issue.
Well, in particular, this does mention the solar panels for you, but I am opening it up to if you had a.
Yeah, I don't have a minute to answer this question, and I guess you're just going to have to believe me and take my word for it, I guess. I've said it numerous times, and I'll say it again. I do believe 100% on the solar project. There's no question about that. You have what I call the solar house of cards, and at the end of the day, when you peel back the onion and you look at the same people, don't take my word for it, look at Chief Alan DeNaro in the disaster of the police station with that $450,000 worth of roof damage. At the end of the day, you have to, let's be very, very clear. There's not one person in this room, if there was a consent order with someone that was for securities fraud, there's not one person in this room that would sign a 20-year deal. There's many other issues. I wish I had more time on this issue, but I don't. But make no mistake about it, I will vote for the project if you give me a company and an organization that I can live with. It's that simple, and I'll vote for it. And I've been asking the mayor to bring it back.
Follow-up, Mr. Vargas?
Thank you. Do your research. If you want to believe Mr. Toohey, I'll borrow from Reagan. Trust and verify. Go online, do your research, see that the vast majority of elected officials in the city of Haverhill endorse that project. You know, we're not all crazy. And I think that it's unfortunate that Mr. Toohey is willing to slander a Haverhill company that he's talking about, a Haverhill company that employs Haverhill people in order to justify petty politics because he doesn't like a certain school committee member. At the end of the day, $10 million in taxpayer savings were wasted on this project. At the end of the day, a new roof could have been installed on Haverhill High School. At the end of the day, we could have invested more in education.
Mr. Toohey, it is your turn to follow up.
Yeah, you know, Andy's only been around for a year and a half, and his record is very, very clear. Tax and spend individual. We all know this. But my job is in the last 14 years to make tough decisions, and I've made them. This project doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense for Haverhill. We never looked at it. As a matter of fact, there's one more issue on this company that you're thinking I'm slandering, which I'm not. There's a gentleman who I shall remain nameless, had to go to the Attorney General's office to get a 401k payment that was never paid to him. So it's that type of stuff. I'll always put you first and not my friends on the school committee.
So we're moving on. The first person, Mr. Toohey, for the next question. The question is, who do you consider to be your constituency and why?
Who do I consider? Everyone. Everyone in the city of Haverhill, they're, oh my God, you know, I've knocked on thousands and thousands of doors. I've been, you know, around for quite a while. Andy thinks that's a negative. I think it's a positive. I've been fortunate to see my children be educated in the Haverhill public school system, which has been terrific. Andy wants to knock the accomplishments and the hard work we've done over the last 14 years or so, but I'm very happy with not only my children's outcome, I'm actually happy that Andy turned out very, very well.
Thank you.
That's 3 compliments, keep track. It's very important that I listen to all of you. Now, at the end of the day, there's a lot of ideology that takes place, And for my progressive liberal friends that are on the left side of the room over here, I will always work for you no matter what. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to vote for me. It's okay. Just so you know, when I'm on Beacon Hill, I will always put you first. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vargas.
Thank you very much, and I agree. Our constituency is the entire city of Haverhill, even those that don't even know what's going on right now, because it's easy for us in this room to talk about the priorities and the issues, but the vast majority of people who are hurting right now don't even know that there's an election happening. And so I'm here to represent the entire city of Haverhill. Everyone from seniors to veterans to homeowners to renters, everybody. And that's how I've operated on the city council. And it doesn't matter if you're a D, if you're an R, if you're an I. I've been endorsed by Republicans in this race. And so I'm here tonight to reiterate that I'm here to serve all of Haverhill, because I know that the way that we create a brighter future for the entire city is if we bring people together to come up with bipartisan and common sense reform to make this city a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like a follow-up, Mr. Toohey?
No, I think we're on the same page on that
Mr.
issue.
Vargas?
I'm all set.
All right. The next question, Mr. Vargas, you're first. Will you commit to being a full-time state representative? Yes, or if not, why not?
Yes, absolutely. There's no question about it. I mean, look, the next state rep is going to be a freshman state representative. This takes hard work. It takes being creative. It takes finding ways to create opportunities out of nothing. And that's what I've tried to do on the city council. So yes, I am committed to being a full-time representative. I won't be busy with any other businesses or types of businesses. I'm in the business of being a full-time state representative working for you.
Mr.
No, it's a
Toohey?
very easy question. Thank you for asking it. I'll 100% be a full-time state representative regardless. I'm fortunate to be where I am. I've been fortunate to have multiple businesses, and I have a family business, and I'm able to put everything in place for me to hit the ground running from day one. So I'm eager to do it, and I look forward to doing it. Thank you.
Okay, follow-up? Either of you? Is that, okay.
Okay.
Next question. Haverhill is home, let's see, who's first on this? Mr. Toohey, you were first. Haverhill is home to Northern Essex Community College. State financial support of the college has gone from a high many years ago of funding 75% of their budget to 25% now. This has caused a rise in student fees to make up for this gap. What would you do to support this valuable institution?
Well, I'm going to do everything I can. I think it's a tremendous asset, the collaboration that Northern Essex and other schools in the area have with Haverhill Public Schools. We need to continue to build on that and also have build on the relationships between businesses and the schools. It's all, again, it goes back to priorities. It really, really is. It's about identifying the needs in an area, identifying the needs for Haverhill. That's what I'm here. I'm here to represent you, represent the institutions, people, constituents, and I'll do everything I can to make sure that it's affordable and stays a tremendous asset, because it is, in the city of Haverhill.
Thank you. Mr. Vargas.
Thank you very much. I also want to compliment Northern Essex Community College, particularly Lane Glenn, that has done tremendous work in the city of Haverhill and across the Merrimack Valley. The reality is that one day in this country we decided that public education was going to be an opportunity for everyone, regardless of their income or their stature in society. We defined that up to the 12th grade. But at this point, in order to be competitive in the new economy, you really need a little bit more than the 12th grade. And whether that's being in the trades or a community college or an apprenticeship, whatever it may be, there's some sort of education that you need after that. And so we need to make sure that that's affordable and that's quality education available to all, regardless of your income. And the way we get there is through a variety of ways. Right now, there are tons of private universities that have presidents that are making millions of dollars, but they're listed as nonprofits. So we need to make sure that and I include my alma mater, BU, which I love, but the president making millions of dollars while student fees go up and while tuition goes up is something that I'm not for, while maintaining your nonprofit status. So if we can address that, then we open up some funding for our community college. Thank you.
Follow-up, Mr. Toohey?
Well, I'm pleased to hear him say that. I know that you have a special guest coming this weekend. Do you know what she earns to teach a class? Elizabeth Warren?
I'm not here to talk about her. I'm here to talk about Haverhill.
Well, okay. I think it's north of $300,000. So I appreciate you saying that. I do agree with you, but maybe we should have that discussion if I see her this weekend. Thank you.
Come on by.
I will. I think it's a great idea.
Vargas, follow-up?
I'm all set. I'm here to talk about Haverhill issues, and I'll continue to do that until the end of this debate and the end of this race. Thank you very much.
So we'll have one more question, and then we'll move to closing statements.
Thank you.
So the final question for the evening, and this is for Mr. Vargas first. What is your position on the minimum wage?
Sure. So as I stated earlier, as productivity has gone up, as GDP has gone up in the Commonwealth and across the country, wages of the middle class have not. It's the reality of the situation. And the way that we built the greatest economy in the world is by having a strong middle class that can pour money into our small businesses, that can buy from Main Street and from Merrimack Street instead of Wall Street. And so I believe in raising the minimum wage, but doing so in a way that is responsible to small business owners. Because let's be honest, it is going to affect some of our small businesses. So while we raise the minimum wage, we need to make sure that we're offsetting those costs either in healthcare or another industry as we go after closing corporate tax loopholes that can allow us to free us some capital and some space for our small businesses to thrive here on Merrimack Street and on Washington Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toohey.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I actually supported the last increase to the minimum wage up to $11 an hour. However, this one, at this particular juncture, I think is a small business killer. I think it's too fast, too soon. I don't agree with Andy on this particular issue right now. I think it's, like I said, too soon, too fast. I talk to businesses all the time. I see it, I hear it, and it's just not the right time. People are going to go from full to part-time. You're going to see a lot of different things happen. I just think it has some merit, but not right now. And like I said, I did support the last one, which was just a few years ago, that graduated up to $11 an hour. But at this particular juncture, I don't support the $15 an hour.
Thank you, and I think this issue is important right now because there's a middle class out there that can't afford to live in Haverhill right now, that can't afford to buy products from their small businesses downtown. So I'm very clear about the fact that we need to make sure that small businesses are at the table when we address the $15 minimum wage. And if we don't raise it, what we're going to continue to do is subsidize corporations that are paying low wages to then have the government provide welfare to those people that have low wages. So let's be very clear about the fact that we need to rebuild the middle class, provide them with a wage that allows them to buy from our small businesses while we close corporate loopholes that can free up some space for small businesses. Thank you.
Well, I classify myself as the middle class. I'm a small business owner. My wife's a business owner. And again, we could talk, that all sounds great, but at the end of the day, people that put their neck on the line every day, like I've been and my wife has been doing for so many years, it just doesn't make sense right now. And like I said, I think at a particular juncture, a certain different time, I think it's a good move. But at this point, it's just not the right move. Not from what I'm hearing. And I have my ear on the street every single day.
Thank you. Okay, on November 17th, the voters have to decide which of you to vote for.
November 7th.
7th. Oh, what did I say? 17th?
Turn out the vote.
7th. Please help them in your final 3-minute statement by stressing the major differences you see between yourself and your opponent. So after the coin toss, we're having Mr. Toohey go first. 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'll try to keep to the 3 minutes. I want to thank all of you for being here this evening. I want to thank again the League of Women Voters for sponsoring the debate. This race is much more than who's going to replace Brian Dempsey. It's about who's going to bring Haverhill forward together in a brighter future. As your next state representative, I'll work hard to represent you and your interests on Beacon Hill to make sure that Haverhill is a better place to live. Again, my priorities in this race are very simple, and they're tied to my personal experiences. Again, I grew up in the Tower Hill section of Lawrence, Massachusetts with a single mom. I know she's gone right now, and I miss her tremendously. It was challenging. We didn't have a lot of money, and I've seen firsthand how those failed policies cripple a community, and I will never let that happen in Haverhill, like I said. As a husband and father raising a family in Haverhill, I want to make sure that our streets are safe. I think this is a very important issue. Everyone knows that the ever-growing threats this community faces on a daily basis. I'm proud to be endorsed by the State Police Association of Massachusetts, and I'll make sure that I don't tie the hands from law enforcement and make sure they have the tools to keep us safe. And once again, I'll pledge that I will oppose any effort to make Massachusetts and Haverhill a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state. In addition, we talk about the opioid crisis. Too many lives are being lost or ruined because of this tragic situation. I'll be tough on drug dealers. I support mandatory minimums. My opponent does not. If you sell fentanyl or heroin that causes a fatality, you should...
Excuse me. We want to listen to the candidates.
Thank you, sir. You just gave me a few more minutes. You should go to prison for manslaughter. It's that simple. As a parent, like I said, and a member of the school committee for 14 years, I will always make education a priority. I will continue to fight on behalf of those who depend on special education funding to provide them the resources and support they need to succeed in life. It's very important to me. I will also bring my experience as a business owner to help a better sense of fiscal responsibility to Beacon Hill. And I know what it means to meet the bottom line day in and day out. I will impose that same discipline to the legislature and deliver for Haverhill. Finally, because I have the endorsement of the most popular governor, most effective governor in the country as far as I'm concerned, I will work hand in hand in a bipartisan fashion with the governor and make sure Haverhill receives the resources it needs to move us forward. The choice is clear here on November 7th, and I believe I'm the right choice to be the next Haverhill State Representative. And I humbly ask for your support and vote November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vargas.
Thank you very much. Elections are about choices. Elections are about doing your homework as voters. Elections are about looking at agendas and seeing what both candidates have done with their track records. When was the last time Mr. Toohey put something on the agenda meaningful? This is about looking at the votes, the tangible votes that we've taken that have impacted lives. There's one candidate that has cost taxpayers $10 million by voting against a solar project, despite having the vast majority of city leadership behind that project. There's one candidate also that has fought for public safety and adding 5 more police officers into the budget and making the tough call of voting no and then reaching compromise between the city council and the mayor. There's also one candidate that believes that Haverhill's brightest days are still ahead. There's one candidate that knows that we are above fear-mongering. There's one candidate in this race that knows that we as a city are above toxic politics, that we will reject cynicism, that we will reject inhumanity, and that all of us together are one Haverhill. I'm here tonight to tell you that Haverhill's brightest days are ahead, because by working together, we can create that future. And I have the track record of doing that on the city council by fighting for more funding for our schools, even when 90% of school districts across the state of Massachusetts invest more in education than we do. I've done it by making sure that the city matches funds to renovate a library thanks to the Maddox Foundation up at Tilton Library. I've done it by advocating for software called ClearGov that tells taxpayers exactly where your tax dollars are going, because financial accountability and transparency and responsibility are utmost important, including in the savings of solar projects. And I'm here today to also reinforce my support for healthcare for everybody, regardless of how much money you have in your pocket. Because if we are willing to say as a society that you have a right to access as education, quality education, how are we to say that your ability to beat cancer, your ability to come back from an opioid addiction should be dependent on how much money you have in your pocket or the insurance provider that you have? I'm here to fight for Haverhill values, because I know that we as a city, we're better than this. We're better than toxic politics, and I know that on November 7th, we will rise above this moment and define who we are as a city. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. To close the forum, I'd like to thank both of our candidates for participating this evening. And to reminders of the audience, November 7th, don't forget to vote. Contact your city clerk's office.